Thank you, and welcome back to the Patriots 300 level podcast. My name's Eric. I'm joined by my co-host Kevin. Welcome back after a little hiatus to start the offseason for our 87th episode, where we'll be recapping the Patriots offseason moves, some of the acquisitions that they made, some of their departures, and discussing what other additions they need to make before the start of the season. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter/X and Instagram at Pat's 300 level pod for up-to-minute updates and commentary on news of the day. Kevin, second straight offseason, Patriots were one of the leaders in cap space going into the free agency. I know last year everyone was a little disappointed, but we were told trust the process. Process turned out to be shit. Um, they didn't really do anything except sign their own guys. Yet a lot of the people that they signed seemed to be the wrong guys. Um, Ended up with Drake May in the draft, which is good, but other than that, pretty much the whole last offseason was a disaster. What are your thoughts so far, at least through the free agency period so far? I know we're still about a month away from the draft, but what are your thoughts so far and how they've done to address the roster?
I think they've done a decent job, especially after today's news. It definitely helps it go in the right direction. I think what they did focus on a lot was well, they definitely focused on a lot was defense,
Yeah,
and everyone knew that they had some holes there that they had to fill. Their defense regressed last year
yeah,
after kind of what they played like the year before, and you did see a lot of lack of kind of accountability from that side. And I think you're going to see some more moves that are made as we go on throughout the offseason, maybe training camp. So I don't think they're done there with,
yeah,
I don't think the roster that's there now is going to 100% be everyone's still going to be there. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And they definitely improved their defense a lot. They
yeah.
adding we'll get into each signing, but between Milton Williams and Carlton Davis alone, I think that really improves them a lot. And then the thing that we're all looking for really is we went into this offseason like we did last year saying they need to have a wide receiver or two, and then they need to have a left tackle
Yeah.
and possibly right tackle. And they ended up solving the right tackle, at least for the next year or two, with Morgan
Potentially.
Moses.
Yeah,
They don't have a left tackle still, and they now do-ish have a wide receiver by adding Stefon Diggs. Um, it'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes forward, but
yeah.
I think they did about as good as they could have done. They have done more at the wide receiver front? Could have they gone for like Metcalf or who was the other guy? There's a few guys that went out there that were
Like T.
traded for.
Higgins, but he ended up
Mhm.
re-signing. There's Debo to the
Oh
Commanders.
yeah,
Yeah,
Debo, Metcalf, that sort of thing, where they weren't high priced items. Again, I don't know would they want to come here. Is that
yeah,
thing? Metcalf did mention on a podcast earlier in the offseason how he didn't want to go to New England because the weather was terrible.
yeah. He ends up
So
going to Pittsburgh, which
yeah,
you could
so
argue has worse weather,
yeah,
but
and they don't have a quarterback right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
It's likely probably going to be Aaron Rodgers of anyone, but that's really the only other spot for him if he does play.
Maybe
Um,
Cleveland, but
hmm So he might have a quarterback, but yeah. The other thing with Metcalf too, we can get into that now, I guess, and then we'll get into the different players.
yeah,
Is there are some concerns just about his. He's a really good wide receiver, but is he a good route runner? Is he a good
yeah,
fit for this scheme? Is he the best type of person to be around for this type of locker room environment we have, where they're trying to build a culture and they're
yeah,
trying to get a team that is a hard fighting. They practice well. They're really studied up. Is he that type of guy to set that culture? There's a lot of people saying that he wasn't that type of player in Seattle. They
yeah.
kind of got
But
by.
I feel like you can't make that argument for not getting Metcalf, but then sign Diggs and be okay with Diggs. I
Mhm.
think Diggs is more of a diva, more of someone that complains if he doesn't get the ball. Granted, the contract situation's a lot different. It's only 26 million
Mhm.
guaranteed. Yeah, it's 23 million a year versus I think Metcalf's is 30 million a year, so 7 less million a year. But also it's much less guaranteed money. Again, Diggs is
Well, the
also an
other
older
thing too
player,
with
but
Diggs is that he's a better route runner than
yeah,
Metcalf is,
yep.
so it
But
fits
that
in
actual
more.
culture
Hmm.
aspect, I don't think you can say it's good that they didn't get Diggs and then go around and sign, or it's good they didn't get Metcalf and then go
Hmm.
ahead and sign Diggs, who has been
Oh,
more of a locker room
I
issue.
still have gotten Metcalf too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I would have, I really kind of would have thrown that up against the wall and said, let's see what happens. Because like
yeah,
the other thing too, where everyone's saying like the thing with it wouldn't fit in the Josh system. The Josh system isn't going to be the same thing that we saw 5 years ago with Brady or
yeah,
however long it's been now. More than five
yeah.
years ago, 6 years ago. It's going to be more simplified. He's going to have some wrinkles in it to make it a little bit newer, and
Hmm.
he's a really smart offensive coordinator. He would be able to fit him
Yeah,
in different ways. So he wouldn't have him run these crazy option routes and stuff like that that requires a lot of like mental capacity. He'd be able to fit him in. I would have done it.
yeah,
They did go after Godwin. Godwin, they did offer the supposedly $20 million more, and he wanted to stay in Tampa. I
yeah,
can't really blame him. Like he's at near
yeah,
the end of his career, and I would rather stay in Tampa than come all the way up to New England. Just personally, like
yeah.
the weather is much better.
I love Tampa.
Um, he likes the team. He likes Baker, and realistically, is it really $20 million more? Not really, because of there's no income tax down in Florida versus one of the highest income taxes here in
I
Massachusetts with
think
the
with the
millionaires
millionaires
tax.
tax, it's like 9.1%. I could be wrong, but it's
Hmm.
around that ballpark.
Hmm. So it's not really $20 million he's leaving. It's probably, I don't know. I can't do the math in my head, but
13 million,
maybe,
maybe
yeah.
maybe 13 max.
Hmm. So that's another thing. And then the other thing that they wanted to go for was Ronnie Stanley, tackle from the Ravens. Supposedly they offered more than what the Ravens had
We're
offered.
going to offer more. He didn't. It was he re-signed before they hit free
Oh,
agency, so we don't know. Yeah,
they offered him more. They
yeah,
let him know that how
yeah.
much they were going to offer him.
Yeah.
And he decided to go back to the Ravens. Um, The other scenario, the only thing there's two different kind of scenarios out there which I could have said they didn't do enough for left tackle. One
There's
would be, what was it?
oh no, go.
I was gonna say
There's
one would be the guy the Chiefs had signed. They ended up getting outbid by the Chiefs. You have the most money out there. You can, if you really want
yeah,
the guy, you can go get him.
but he was very much overpaid for the production that he's provided. So I at least understand if you don't feel say you want him, but you set a
Hmm.
certain number at what you're comfortable signing. I understand not overpaying for a guy who is more of a question mark. It's not like he's an established left tackle. So
Hmm.
I get that. The one that I don't understand at all is not trading for Laramie Tunsil, left tackle from the Texans, seeing what the Commanders gave up to get him. The Commanders gave up a third round pick this year, a second round pick next year, and I think a fourth or swap of fourths. Laramie Tunsil is one of the top five left tackles in the NFL. He might have been a locker room issue, but I think a bigger locker room issue is if your offensive line can't block anyone and your offense can't score points because you're not able to block anyone because you get off the field. This year, if you give up a third round pick, you have two third round picks this year, both better than the Commanders because the Commanders finished so much better than you. Your second round pick next year is likely going to be a better pick for the Texans than what the Commanders give up because you're assuming Commanders did very well last year. Patriots didn't. Even if Patriots improve, they're not going to be as good and a second round pick in the future. So if for the Patriots, you're thinking you're going to be better. So it's not like you're giving up essentially a late first round pick. You're giving up if you improve as well as you're expecting, mid to late second round pick. For a left tackle who is one of the best in football, yes, he only has 1 year left on his contract, but you can franchise him, you can resign him, you can figure out what to do there, but you get the biggest hole on your roster the last 4 to 5 years. Why they didn't do that, I have no idea. The only things I can think of is Casario just is so bitter about what happened in New England when he left. He doesn't want to do business with them and was willing to take a similar or less deal to ship him out of the conference. Or B, you have no clue that Laramie Tunsil's even on the market, even though your offensive coordinator's brother is the passing coordinator for the Texans. Your offensive coordinator was roommates with the Texans GM, which so that's just either full incompetence or you just don't feel comfortable enough to get one of the best left tackles in football, which makes zero sense.
Yeah, there were some things that did come out after the trade, saying that there were some kind of leadership issues there. So that
Yeah,
also could be a scenario where maybe Josh did hear that, or they heard it from Casario, and they didn't want to have that risk. I would take the risk still, just
yeah.
because he's such a good player, and
And
you make
not
sure
only
that.
is he a good player, left tackle is the toughest position to find in football. And not only that, just tackle in general. There's 62 starting tackle positions in the NFL. There are not 62 starting caliber tackles in the NFL.
Mhm.
And more of the starting caliber tackles are on the right side of the offensive line. There's not 20 starting caliber left tackles and you're getting a top five guy, it's worth the risk of the character issues and the locker room issues, especially considering the deficiencies you've had there year after year after year.
hmm and then the other reasons why they also might not have done this is that they could just be valuing their draft capital so much, where they're like, we don't want to give up something for, you know. And the thing is, he's older, but 30 years
30?
old, at a tackle position is not that old. It's not like he's a running back. It's not like he's a wide receiver. It's not like he's even how like a linebacker. Like tackles can usually play
Can you
till
can you
they're
get
34 or
a
35.
can you get a starting caliber left tackle with the third round pick? Can you get a
No,
top five left tackle
not
with the
usually.
third round pick?
And not
No.
even usually with there was a stat out there that broke down left tackles by where their draft position was,
Yeah.
and pretty much to get anyone that's capable and very good, they have to be in the first round. They're usually in the first half of the first
Yeah.
round. Um, so the odds
There
that
are definitely there are
Mhm.
exceptions. What's his name? Nate Soldier was a late first round pick. Matt Light was a second round pick. So there are exceptions, but for the most part, it's very, very unlikely you're going to be able to get a starting caliber left tackle, let alone a top five left tackle
Mhm.
with that third round pick. And you have two third round picks this year. It's not like it's
Mhm.
just one third round pick and then you don't pick again till round five or six. You have two third round picks. You can part with one of them.
Yep. No, agreed. All right. So we've
Other than that, I didn't really get a chance to talk about much of the free agents yet. I've been a fan of what they've done this offseason, again, outside of the Laramie Tunsil issue. For the tackles who hit free agency, there a lot of them, especially left tackles, weren't even close to worth the money they got. Again, you still have to fix that position. You can't go into the offseason or you can't go into opening day with Vidarian Lowe as your starting left tackle. Again, how they fix that going forward, I don't know outside of in the draft. But Milton Williams was the number one player available in free agency, and they were able to get him, which is great for this defense. Again, you don't know, we have no idea if Christian Barmore is ever going to be able to play again, let alone this season. You're hoping is because he's such a talented defensive tackle, but if he's not able to, Milton Williams can fill that position of disrupting uh, offensive lines, providing pass rush in the interior line. And if Barmore does come back, a pair of Milton Williams and Christian Barmore is going to be extremely difficult for offensive lines to try and stop. And then when
Yeah,
you pair
and then
that
think of
with
Keon White
what?
on top of. I was gonna say Keon White on top
Yep,
of it, coming from the edge.
exactly. Keon White on the edge, Harold Landry on the edge. Depending on what they do in the draft, if Abdul Carter falls to four, a defensive line of Keon White uh, in the interior or exterior, depending on what you want. You have both Williams and Barmore in the middle, Landry and Carter on the outside. That's going to be absolutely insane defensive line to have to deal with for offenses.
Mhm.
Carlton Davis, really great signing. 3 years, $60 million. You have your boundary corner outside of Gonzo. Your top three cornerbacks are pretty much set with Gonzo, Davis, and then you have Marcus Jones in the slot. Stefon Diggs. Again, I would have liked a better or wide receiver one that's in their prime. But Diggs was playing well before he got hurt. Again, he is a little older, going to be 31, coming off an ACL. 3 years, 69 million, which is only 23 million AAV for a top wide receiver. Again, I don't know if he's top anymore, but that's a good value and only 26 million guaranteed. So when I initially saw the numbers, 3 years, 69 million, I thought it was a little high for someone of his age coming off an ACL, but looking at the guaranteed money,
Yeah,
it
the
seems
guarantee
like
of 26 million, it's
yeah,
not. And then you really
that's a good
basically have him
contract.
for basically a 1 year deal
Exactly.
guaranteed. And
Yep.
if he does produce really well, you keep him.
Yep.
You may want it restructured and get more
Yeah.
guarantees, but somewhere along the lines. And if he doesn't work out, or you kind of want to move on, you find someone else,
Yep.
it'd be an easy kind of walk away. So it'd be a nice kind of um, get going kind of thing
Yep.
for Drake May.
And they had the cap space too, so
Hmm.
it's not that big of an issue.
Yeah. And that's
Robert
the other thing
Spill.
too. They have to spend money because they
Yeah.
literally actually have to spend it to hit that 90% threshold between the 3 year mark because they were so low last year. They didn't spend that much even before the Diggs part this year.
Yep.
So they have to spend the money this year and next year. So that's actually another thing where they have the money to spend, they should spend it. So
Yep. No, I agree. Robert Spillane, linebacker, 3 years, 33 million. I actually like the signing a lot. He played 1 year in Tennessee with Vrabel as an undrafted free agent. Last 2 year or McDaniels brought him into Vegas, played with McDaniels for 6, 8 games before McDaniels got the axe, but played very well in Vegas. Was started every single game the last 2 years. 148 combined tackles in 2023, 158 combined tackles in 2024, was a captain. Uh, 3 interceptions 2 years ago, 2 interceptions last year. Seems like the perfect caliber linebacker that you want for this defense and knows the defense that Vrabel plays as well. So I really like that signing. The way he plays is more old school linebacker, which is something that this defense needs to help set the tone. At center, Bradbury from Minnesota, who started every game for them the last, I think, 4 or 5 years. They needed a center because they ended up cutting David Andrews. Sad to see Andrews go, but it's not totally unexpected considering
I just
his.
don't get the reason for it now, where
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think that especially for the amount of money that he's being paid, they could have
Mm,
easily still signed Garrett Bradbury and kept Andrews and see how Andrews was going into training camp and give it a shot. Just
yeah,
because Andrews is probably one of the best leaders they've had in years,
yeah,
and is a tough player. He's played through a lot. He specifically got the surgery last year to kind of prolong his career. And again,
mhm,
who even knows if he might even be able to play because
yeah,
the injury he had was it's the second rotator cuff injury, and I can't remember if it was. I think it was this one. Like the muscle came off the bone,
yeah,
so they had to reattach and do some weird, funky things. So who
yeah. I
even
think he
knows
had
if
an
he's gonna?
experimental surgery too.
Yeah, so who even knows if he's even gonna be able to play? But I would have given him a shot. And then the other
Yeah,
thing is he knows Josh and he knows Josh's system and offense, and he's probably one of the best players to have out there to teach Drake some of the stuff as a player's perspective. Um, so I just don't get that. It does seem like they're kind of cleaning house too of all the
yeah,
like previous captains. Again, I don't think Andrews probably would have as much loyalty to Mayo as some of like the defensive captains would, especially since the loyalty he had to Bill.
yeah,
Um, but it's kind of
yeah.
sad to see him go for that.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing I can think of is they probably knew Bradbury was going to get caught and they were planning on signing him. And with his injury, probably assuming it's very unlikely he's going to play. So might as well have Bradbury start as the projected
Hmm.
starter, get all the reps that you need, and then you're kind of doing David a service of cutting him early so that he can potentially catch on elsewhere, as well as not demoting him or not giving him a fair chance as center. So that's the only thing I can think of, but I would have agreed like to see him. He's been one of my favorite Patriots, just his attitude, his leadership. So moving on, another signing that they got was Morgan Moses, who helped solidify the right tackle position. He started most games this past year. I think he missed 3 games, but he had a lot. He had several injuries, but was willing to play through it. Yeah, he missed 3 games this past year, but he had some pretty massive injuries and still played through it. He's tough, wants to play. He can be a pretty decent option at right tackle, which is something you didn't really have options of. Also, by getting that right tackle, you're able to move a when you to right guard, which is he's better at. So you're assuming the offensive line stays where it is right now. You still have a huge question mark at left tackle. Left guard, you have whoever wins the competition between Cole Strange, City So, and Layden Robinson. At center, you have Bradbury with potentially Strange, maybe competing for that center spot. You have Onwenu pretty much locked up at right guard. You have Morgan Moses pretty much locked up at right tackle with Caden Wallace as a potential player who, if he develops this offseason, maybe he competes with Moses for that job. But it helps solidify that offense, and it really only leaves one glaring hole at left tackle. Wide receiver, they also signed Mac Hollins. Up until the Stefon Diggs deal, he was the top guy they got, which isn't really saying much other than the fact that he's pretty much torched us the last couple of years. But 378 yards last year, five TDs. It seems like all of them came against the Patriots. Uh, then they signed linebacker Jack Gibbons to 1 year contract, who played for Vrabel in Tennessee. They signed offensive guard Wes Schweitzer from the Jets, who started 62 games in the NFL at both guard positions, so helps provide interior depth at guard. Probably won't make the roster, but at least provides some potential depth option. They signed Marcus Epps to a 1 year contract, who's a safety previous with the Raiders. They signed Clavon Chasen. He's a defensive end edge with the Raiders last year. Before that, he was with Jacksonville. I believe he was a first round pick, where he didn't play great in Jacksonville, but last year he kind of showed his potential, having 5 sacks. So he's someone that could be another player that may have a breakout potential in a new defensive scheme. Signed defensive tackle Kiris Tonga, who was with the Cardinals last year, providing some more defensive interior line depth. And then last acquisition that they've had is quarterback Josh Dobbs, 2 year, $8 million contract, just providing that veteran quarterback position on the roster to go alongside Drake May and Milton. Some additional, they've re-signed Austin Hooper, who had a good year for them last year. They re-signed linebacker, special teams player Christian Ellis. All the other players they've re-signed probably won't make the roster. Maybe Jeremiah
Paramount
Farms.
Farms. Ben Brown might too.
Maybe depends. He has a potential. Demontre Jacobs, who started 13 games for you last year, which is insane that he started 13 games last year, but he'll be a good body at camp. Maybe if he develops more, maybe he could make the roster. And then Jalen Hawkins, maybe, but probably more practice squad for most of these guys.
Mhm. All right.
Uh,
Oh, you gonna say something
Any
else?
any other words, comments on the acquisitions that they made? I really like a lot of them. When you look at them, looking at the whole picture, they help provide depth. You add a lot of quality, good starters, which this team definitely needed.
Hmm.
Mostly on the defensive side, but a few on the offensive side as well. What are your thoughts on just overall, as well as any specific players that I mentioned?
Yeah, I think one of the things I was going to mention, I kind of alluded to it too, where we were seeing from the departures and kind of the acquisitions is I wouldn't be surprised if, come the start of the season, that we see a few more kind of releases or trades where I don't think July Tavai will be on the roster
Yep, I doubt it.
starting the year. I don't think Bentley is going to be on the roster,
I don't either.
and then I don't think
Good
Peppers is going to be
riddance.
on the roster. I think
I think Peppers has a good shot. It's just
it
we
just
saw how
they I was gonna say we've seen how much they wiped out every single captain that's been on the
yeah,
team. Although Peppers wasn't a captain to end the year because of the his whole kind of
yeah,
indiscretions, but and then the other thing too is I just don't think Bentley really fits into Vrabel's scheme as much
yeah,
as he did in the Patriots game, where he uses a lot more athletic linebackers and faster
yeah.
linebackers, and Bentley's not that. He's that older style linebacker,
Hmm.
and I just don't know how good of a fit it is. There was something I did see that he did lose some weight this offseason to try and fit himself into Vrabel's scheme. So maybe that's
Yeah,
why he hasn't been traded or cut yet. But with just the amount of linebackers that they've acquired,
yeah,
there's going to be some people gone.
yeah.
And
Agreed.
how big their safety room is. Someone's going to be an odd person out.
Not necessarily. I mean, I feel like Duggar is probably safe because of the contract he signed.
hmm
Peppers, it depends. There's the off the field stuff, which could be an issue, but he still was on the roster after that happened.
hmm
We saw how good he was 2 years ago in 2023. Again, it's a different system or scheme,
hmm
but it's not drastically different either. Where Vrabel, I'm sure he sees his potential, how well he played. He can fit or adjust the defense to your best players, which Peppers was your best player in 2023.
hmm
So again, I think it could be possible seeing how they keep axing more and more captains, but I would be more surprised if he is compared to some of the other guys because he
hmm
is one of your best talents on defense.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was going to mention too is that just looking at pretty much all these signings, for the most part, except for Milton Williams and now Stefon Diggs. Um, if anyone was really fearful of Matt Groh and Elliott Wolf having like full control and being really responsible, this is the opposite of that. All these players have had backgrounds with either Vrabel or Josh or any of the other kind of coaching staffs.
Diggs does to an extent too because Josh's brother was the
Yeah.
passing game coordinator for the
hmm
Texans.
Yeah. So he has a kind of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon with Josh.
Yes.
And so pretty much everyone except for Milton Williams has some sort of relation to one of them.
Yeah.
And they did the complete opposite of what they did last season. And these are all the type
And
of players that Vrabel wants and
yeah.
kind of goes for his system. Uh,
One thing with last season though is you can't sign people uh if based on your coach's recommendations of playing with them if pretty much all your coaches are in-house or
yeah.
incompetent, which the only guy that they signed with prior experience is Elliot Wolf signing Taki Taki
hmm
over Mac Wilson, which was horrendous. But
hmm um, so yeah, there's that, and then just everything that's really been said. It's the press conferences. They've been laying it on so much to try and say it's a collaborative thing and thanking Elliott and the whole player personnel. And you could tell, the amount that they're talking this up is definitely trying to just give lip service to say like, oh,
I don't know.
Elliott's not.
It still worries me a little bit because I feel like they wouldn't. It would just be more of Vrabel doing it and having Wolf in the background. It does worry me a little bit that Wolf is at everything because I feel like if he was going to be gone, he wouldn't be at everything because it's going to be a stark difference with, or say, he's at every single press conference. He's talking to the media. He's at the draft, etc. And then
Mhm.
post draft, he's just gone. I feel like if he was going to be gone, he wouldn't be doing all this stuff right now. It would just be Vrabel saying, "It's my show. Elliott's here helping out, blah, 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 blah." So I am still worried about that a little bit.
I'm not concerned. I think one thing is that too they don't want to have to do the whole Rooney Rule thing again. So they don't want to make it seem like it's clear and obvious that Wolf isn't running the show. I wouldn't be surprised if Wolf is in his capacity for the next year or two, but I don't think he's going to have
I
any
don't think
sort
you
of
have to do
power.
the Rooney Rule thing unless you specifically give that title. That's the thing is
No,
Mayo
they
was
have to
big.
have someone according to league rules they don't have to have the title of GM, but they have to have some sort of like player personnel thing, and
Oh,
then
is
they
that
need
why
to
it
go.
was just always Bill, so he never had to do the role?
No, they had they like there was like Matt Groh, and actually I don't know if Bill might have actually had it, so they
I
might not
think
have needed
Bill's
to.
specific title was GM,
Yeah,
so that they didn't have to go through those
yeah, they might
rules.
not have, but they have.
Yeah.
If you hire, you have to have someone listed as that.
Okay.
So if Elliot Wolf were to leave, they would have to do the whole search and all that
That's
sort of
fair.
thing. And the amount that they've kind of skirted through the Rooney Rule recently, they might not want to do that again.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is you're paying Elliot Wolf regardless if you fire
Yeah.
him, if you keep him. So, and I think what his kind of role is going to be more of just the craft kind of personality in there,
Yeah.
where they got rid of Robin Glazier. He's at least someone that they're familiar with and they like, and he's really more just to do all of the kind of dot the i's and cross the t's sort of stuff. So do the
Yeah.
paperwork, do the meetings, the press conferences, stuff that Rabel doesn't really want to do anyway. Where like the
Yeah.
after the draft like press conference, like that would be something Bill would used to send Cassari out there for,
Yeah.
or Matt Groh, so he wouldn't have to talk. I think that's really what his kind of role is until he slowly fades away and gets reassigned to like work on the
Hopefully.
training facility or something like that.
Yeah.
We saw this with Bill when he took over. And we saw, I'm blanking on both their names, but there was the cap guy.
Rare.
Um, what was that?
Rare.
I was thinking with the other guy. It was like Wojnarowski or something like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, where he stayed on with the team for like 4 or 5 years, but he had no capacity whatsoever. He was in charge of
Andy
Andy
Wazniak.
Washnak, I think.
I don't know.
Um,
I've never known how to pronounce it, but
yeah.
it's Wasynczuk.
So he basically was put in charge of the stadium design, even as like a title. So, and that was some of the work they did. But he stayed on until I think 2005, and
Yeah.
then Bobby Greer was gone after the draft. I don't think it's going to be as much a Bobby Greer situation. I think it's going to be kind of an in between Bobby Greer and the Andy situation where I think he's got to still stay with the team for a little bit. They're paying him anyway, and you know how
Yeah.
Kraft is with firing and paying guys. He's already had basically had to eat an entire coaching salary of like the entire coaching like system. So
Yeah.
is he going to want to eat the GM too? like, at least if he's paying him, he probably wants him to do something. So,
Yeah. No, that's
um,
fair.
I'm not concerned. And I think that was it for. Oh, if you had to grade this offseason so far, what would you give it?
I would give it a B plus. I think it's very good. I'd like to see a better wide receiver one brought in here, and they still might do that. A lot of times we've seen the top wide receivers ultimately get traded either on draft day or right around the draft. So
Hmm.
maybe Brandon Ayuk might be traded for a third round pick per se on draft night or something like that. And I would have liked to see them upgrade the left tackle position. As we mentioned, there weren't a ton of options based on who was available outside of Laramie Tunsil, but given that they should have, even if you have to overpay for Laramie Tunsil, give more than what Washington gave. He's someone that's worth it. Again, maybe I understand maybe not giving your top two picks this year, but seeing how he went to Washington for not a top two pick this year,
Hmm.
that's something that they should have done, unless there's some reason that we just don't know. But other
Yeah.
than that, I love every other move that they've done, other than cutting Andrews. But again, I understand potentially why they did that.
Yeah. Yeah. A B plus is exactly what I was thinking. Especially now with the Stefon Diggs, I still want to give in the A range just because
Yeah,
they don't have a left tackle, and that's
yeah.
crucial. And then they don't really have still a one wide receiver. I would call him like a 1B right now, until we fully see.
Well, there
Um,
might be one on the roster with Booty.
but realistically, the wide receiver group isn't terrible,
Yeah,
especially with having Josh here. I think the biggest thing last year was, and we saw how much Josh could do with this team back in 21, where
even 20.
yeah, even 20, their wide receiver group wasn't great then either, but they still put up the six most points in offense in
Yeah,
21. And this year, you could say their wide receiver group isn't terrible. It's not great, But if their whole thing with like the Josh system is to get the ball to the open guy and making sure that you kind of spread the love out, you don't always need that number one. They never always had that number one type
Yeah.
of kind of guy. There usually was like a one ish, like a really good receiver like Welker,
Wes
Edelman, like
Welker.
slots.
Yeah.
So that would be something where I think like Pop can is really going to benefit this year by having
Yeah.
Josh because um, they had no idea how to use him last year. They had no idea how to use Marcus Jones last year until he decided to say like, oh, like I could play offense, and they had no
Yeah.
idea. Like there's just gonna it's gonna be I think a lot better just by the mind that they have there and knowing how to effectively use guys. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think Pop is destined to have a better season this year. He had one of the best Patriots rookie wide receiver years in history.
Since Terry Glenn.
hmm so I think he could really go off of that. The concussion thing worries me a
Yeah.
little bit just with him. But then basically you have Diggs, you have Pop. I don't know if Bourne's going to be around.
I don't think he will be.
I don't think he's going to be, but he is
You
talented.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but
Booty,
you have
which
Bodie, who's
Booty actually had a good year last year,
he
and
did, and
that's
he's
with not
a
him
kind of a
not playing much.
possession guy. As long as
Yeah.
you get his head still straight, he was a little bit diva-ish for not being that good.
Yeah.
Um, for being an average wide receiver and being a diva is
Yeah.
kind of weird, but um,
Matt Collins is a good number five guy.
mhm.
You have Polk and Baker where you're hoping something based on their rookie
Between
season. I know they were drafted high, but based on their rookie seasons, you have to assume they're not going to give you
yeah,
anything. But maybe they're able to turn it around with the new regime where you saw the talent with both of them. Maybe they get their head on. If not, move on. You
hmm
have pretty decent four guys with Diggs, Pop, Booty, uh,
I'd even say
maybe
Born
Hull.
for now.
Yeah, Bourne for now. And then depending
And
on who they go
Hollins.
in the draft, which we'll
hmm
get into in a minute, but if they go with Travis Hunter or if maybe Tet if Hunter and Carter are available again, I don't want Tet
hmm
at all. But if he turns out to be like a DeAndre Hopkins type player or something like that.
hmm
But we'll have to see. It's still early, like you said, especially with most wide receivers being traded around the draft, where something still could happen.
Yep, yep. So I wouldn't right now. I think even B plus is too early to grade. It could be a lot better depending on what we see for trades, who they
Yeah,
draft to. So I just well, I am excited just about what they can actually do. I think it's
yeah,
going to be a much better season. And then I know the always Batman saying the night is darkest just before the dawn. So we had to
yeah,
endure that horrible season last year
yeah,
to have a hopefully better season this year. I'm very excited just about what's going to happen
yeah.
for this. So draft. What were we going to say? Who do you want number four?
So for me, it's been clear ever since, say, December. I want Abdul Carter. He
Yep.
is, in my opinion, the best player in the draft. He should be going number one. I understand teams that need quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are more important, so I'm hoping he falls to number four. It's looking like Cam Ward's going to go number one to the Titans. And then two and three are question marks. Are the Browns going to get a quarterback? Are they going to go Travis Hunter? Are they going to get another edge in Carter to go opposite of, why am I
Miles
blanking
Garrett.
on? Yeah, Miles Garrett. If they don't go with Carter, let's say they go with Travis Hunter, you gotta assume most likely Giants are going Sanders, but they have a quarterback room of both Russ and Winston. So why would you sign both of them unless you don't believe in Sanders or you don't know if Sanders is going to be available? So again, Giants are a big question mark. I'm assuming if Sanders is available at three, they're going to take him. But if not, I would still think they'll probably go Hunter over Carter. But if they do that and Carter goes two, you're you're kind of in no man's land at four. If it gets to four where Carter and Hunter are both off the board, I would try and trade back because there are teams that need quarterbacks. You got to assume you'll get a decent haul by trading back for a team that wants Sanders. even
Hmm.
though Sanders isn't necessarily unanimously viewed as the top guy or a top quarterback. I have no
Someone's
idea
going to
what.
value him as that, I
Yeah,
think.
but say you're not able to trade out a four and Carter and Hunter are gone. I have no idea. It's you could make an argument for all these guys. Maybe Campbell is half an inch really going to make a difference at arm length. Maybe yes, maybe no. It's tough.
And
Numbers
then there
say
was a
it
report
does.
today saying that the arm lengths, the measurements were a half an inch short at the combine for other guys.
Yeah,
So,
but it's just like at pro days, everyone's
mhm.
40 is usually better because it's not actually accurate. You could say that
Yeah.
the combine is probably more accurate than the pro days.
Hmm.
Again, numbers say that half an inch difference is drastic. Is it in actuality? Maybe it's just a coincidence with Campbell.
I'm
But
not
do you?
taking him. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want anything to do with him. Number
But who?
one, there
So
hasn't been a left tackle taken and played at
yeah,
with those that arm length and wingspan in over a decade. Like, there's a
yeah.
reason for that. And then
No,
the
I
other thing
agree.
is too, if you look at some of the advanced stats with him, yeah, he didn't give up a sack, or he maybe have given up one last year, but his pressure rate was actually like not good.
Yeah,
Compared to a lot of the other tackles on the board. There are actually some other tackles that I think actually might have a better career at tackle than
yeah.
he will that are going to be drafted later on,
I
towards the
agree.
end of the first round or early the second round. Um, and I think that's a huge thing to look at is like the pressure rate, just because they may not be getting sacked, but a lot of these, especially if you look at like Texas, the quarterback knows to get rid of the ball before he's sacked, and he knows they have better protections everywhere else because it's a better program. So the
Yeah.
sack numbers are going to be lower to begin with. Um,
So let's go along with that. Who would you take? Say you have choice of anyone in the draft. Who are you taking at four?
I'm taking Carter for, but I also kind of really like, I mean, very intrigued with Hunter.
Yeah,
I would take either or. If both I am hoping that both quarterbacks go in the top
yeah,
three picks, and then we just have our choice of the leftover.
yeah.
I'd be happy with either of them. They're the two of them are the top two players in the draft. They're the only two
By far.
studs
Yeah,
that are in this draft. The only two really real number ones, besides maybe Ward. Um, maybe. Well, I don't even know.
yeah.
Like,
I think it's pretty clear. It's Carter and Hunter,
hmm.
then Ward,
Yeah.
then it's like a whole
It's a
nother
yeah,
level
crap.
after that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so I would go Carter is by far the number one player.
yeah,
Hunter just really intrigues me just for the wide receiver aspect where they have never been able to draft a wide receiver.
yeah.
And again, this is a whole new regime. That's not to say what they couldn't do before, they can't do now. But he's just so dynamic, and it just intrigues me where you could potentially have him, Diggs, Pop, and like Marcus Jones on the field all at once.
Yeah.
Like you would
Well,
have a
like,
bunch of speed, you would have a bunch of
yeah,
quickness, you could do a whole bunch of different crossers and in cuts, and it's so kind of crazy what you could do with that.
and Booty too. Like, honestly, if you were to get Hunter, him and Diggs would be the perfect pairing
Hmm.
with Pop in the slot, and then adding Booty as well as a fourth wide receiver. That would be a pretty good wide receiver set and tough for
Hmm.
defenses to defend.
Yeah,
But let's say both Carter and Hunter go top three. You're not able to trade back. Who are you taking it for?
that's a good question. I haven't been going too much into the draft yet.
So, like, if they didn't sign Milton Williams, I think you could make an argument for defensive tackle Mason Graham from
Hmm.
Michigan. However, with Barmore under contract for 3 more years and Williams under contract for 4 years, again, we don't know about Barmore, but can you really have three starting defensive tackles?
Hmm.
I know you want to take the best available player, but you kind of uh, that's not might not be the best play.
Hmm.
You could go potentially Walker, the linebacker from Georgia. You could potentially go Membo, the offensive tackle from Missouri, who's been climbing up boards. If you
I was
don't
gonna
trust
say
Gamble,
Membo's, I think the one that I think if I was looking at his stats, he's the one that actually has the best pressure rating against.
yeah,
Um, and I'd be more willing to take the chance for that than
Yeah.
someone with tiny arms and a tiny. And I'm not taking a guard at number four. Like
Yep.
I think everyone says, and looking at watching him, I think that Campbell will be fine in the NFL. I just don't think he's going to be a tackle. He's going to be a
Yep.
guard. And I'm not taking a guard. I know it hurt me before saying they're not going to draft the guard the first rounds, and they ended up
Yep.
drafting Cole Strange.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, I'm gonna probably shoot myself in the foot by saying you'll go drafting a guard number four overall, and I do. But
Yeah.
it just you don't do it.
Yeah. So I think with Membo, he has the best potential, and out of all the guys, out of the top three, him, Campbell, and Banks, I think he has the highest likelihood of being successful at left tackle. I know he's played right tackle for Missouri the past couple of years, but you could potentially put him at left tackle if he doesn't work out, move him to right tackle, and you solidify your right tackle position for years to come, potentially. But you could also argue maybe would you go Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end at four? I don't know if the value is really there. Then you get into the question marks of Ashan Genti, the running back, and I running back value at four is not there.
Hmm.
But
It's not 15 years ago.
it's not. But let's say this is the 2013 draft, which is historically one of the worst drafts in the NFL.
Hmm.
If you think Gianti is the best player available, and you let's again, it's probably not fair to him, but let's say you think he's Derrick Henry. Would you take Derrick Henry if he's available at four?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So again, I don't like the value of a running back, but if he's clearly the best guy available that you have and you don't trust the other guys available, I can at least understand that pick. I probably wouldn't want that, but especially the value, incremental better value of a running back at four versus any of the other positions. But if you think he's by far the best player, I can at least understand it.
Hmm. I
It's
think it
just you,
sucks is that
yeah,
like the year that you have a top pick, like we haven't had this. Well, we have recently, but like
yeah,
besides the last 2 years, we haven't had picks like these in a long time. And then the one
yeah.
year that well, the second year you really need to get a really good player. There's a good chance you're not going to be able to get one.
No, but even if this was last year, say you had the number four pick last year, um, you could go Marvin Harrison potentially. It
Hmm.
depends. Marvin Harrison. There's Malik Neighbors. There. Why am I blanking on the Chargers left tackle? Uh,
Joel.
yeah,
He's a
Joe
right
Alt.
tackle actually, though.
Yeah, he was a left tackle. He played right tackle last year because
Hmm.
usually when you draft a rookie tackle, you play
Hmm.
him at right tackle to start, then you eventually transfer them over.
Yeah.
You have Joe Alt. Brian Thomas went later in the first round. Again, I don't know if he would have taken him at four, but you could have your pick in this. Say one of those people would take still Cam Ward probably, but you're picking between Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, and Marvin Harrison versus
Hmm.
Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, which you could argue are potentially in that caliber. But after that, it's such a huge drop off.
Hmm. And then the
But
other thing is too, there could be some good players afterwards that you draft. Like there could
yeah,
be some wide receivers you get
yep.
late first round, early second round that have some
And
potential, but
yeah,
they're not
it's
that like clear cut. It's gonna
yeah,
work type of player.
definitely. And the thing with this draft is it's kind of sucks after the top two guys on the board, all the way up until like late in the first, early second. That's where the value actually is because a lot of people are saying the person you get at 40 is similar to the person you can get at 20. So
Hmm.
you can still get a very good player at 38. If there's a guy you really like that's still on the board, you could potentially still trade up into the first round where you get that 50-year option and you make sure you get the guy that you want, but still you could be leaving the draft with a really good player taken at 38, especially if you're able to pair them with Carter/Hunter at four.
Hmm. Yep. So, best thing is we hope that two quarterbacks go in the
Yep.
first three picks. I still think the Russell Wilson and the Jameis Winston signings don't preclude them from drafting
Yeah,
Sanders.
I agree.
Just because they're both 1 year. I think Winston was a 1 year deal. I know
Yeah.
Wilson was.
Winston
Um,
might have been a 2-year deal, but that
Actually,
doesn't.
I think you're right. I think it was 2 years, $8 million.
Yeah.
But that's backup money.
Yeah.
And then Wilson's a 1 year deal. Realistically, you're trying not to start your rookie quarterback to begin the year.
Yeah.
So maybe, and then the other thing too with Wilson, you have no idea. I think he's cooked anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but if you get him to start the year and then he kind of starts to fade off, and that's when you throw Sanders in there.
Yeah.
I think that the thing is they're trying to just get as many quarterbacks as they can because they know that this is probably their last year.
Yeah.
Um, if things don't get turned around, uh,
Yeah.
or at least have a glimmer of hope. Like if you
And then
draft,
you have Tommy Cutlets as your fourth option.
yeah. So if you have Wilson and Winston, you're able to kind of get something to go through.
Yeah.
Uh, And then if you were able to draft Sanders, then you can have a little bit maybe more time with Sanders. Whereas
Yeah.
the thing is, they don't want to leave themselves hanging. Where let's say they can't draft Sanders, let's say the Browns draft him, then you
Yeah.
have
Then
no
you're
one,
stuck with no one.
and
Yeah.
then they're fired. So
Yeah.
like they needed someone. So
Other than Malik Neighbors putting up historic fantasy numbers, but
yeah. um, but yeah, so I think that it doesn't preclude them. I don't know if I just don't know if Sanders would put up a fit about going to Cleveland. So that would stop them from drafting them.
yeah.
Um, but we'll see. I'm very hoping that we are able to get one of the two. All right.
Yep.
This
Agreed.
episode's kind of going on for a little while. And I think we'll wrap it up here. We do plan on having kind of a maybe a pre-draft podcast, depending on
Yep.
if we can get a guest that is a little bit more kind of into the weeds than we are for this, and kind of get some highlights there. Or we can even go through some of them too. We'll watch some film and kind of learn up some more of these potential draft picks, and hopefully have a good player to pair on top of Carter and
Yep.
or
Hopefully, we're leaving the
or
draft with
Hunter.
three potential starters this year.
Hmm.
That would be the dream. I at least one, but hopefully three
Yeah.
that
Well,
are either
yeah, because
starters or
realistically,
major.
no, the first round pick has to be a definite starter.
Yeah.
Second round pick has to be someone that can contribute pretty well, and third round pick is where they maybe contribute half a season. So
Yeah.
that's what you got to look
Again, yeah, the third round pick, the first one's like a late second, so you're hoping that
for.
maybe you
Hmm.
can get someone that can start at least a handful of games or be a
Hmm.
contributor, even if they're not starting. And then they have two third round picks. So hopefully trade one of them for a starting caliber wide receiver or someone like that. And then you use the
Hmm.
other one you have to draft an impact player, whether they're a star or just contribute off the bench.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Look forward to talking to you guys next time, and make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks.